Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
All right, thanks for sticking around for the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Rich Walsh. I'll be joined by Batko in a matter of moments. And there he is right there out in Studio A. Give us a call tonight, 412-575-2600 is the number to get on board here tonight. And obviously with one of the Steelers beat writers, that's what we're going to be talking about here tonight. So give us a call, 412-575-2600. Maybe the biggest question, it's something I want to start with, Brian, because I disagree with this. Tomlin is keeping about, 15 players out. The stars, the veterans aren't going to play, most of them. I think this is the game that you play those guys, especially with so many new faces on this team and everyone trying to get together and gel. Play one series. I was surprised that all these guys sat again. And look, it's a home game. It's the preseason home opener. Okay, not a big deal. The games don't count. But there's going to be fans there that want to see Aaron Rodgers in a Steelers uniform.
Yeah, and this is something that, whether it's the second preseason game or the third preseason game, I'm with you, Rich, in the eternal rust versus rest debate this time of year in the NFL. There's always different philosophies on it. There's different perspectives on it from players, coaches, fans, us in the media. I do think it's beneficial just to knock some of that rust off. And Mike Tomlin has said in the past that he thinks it's beneficial. What's one of his go-to lines? If you've heard it once, you've heard it 1,000 times. You can't box without sparring, but I guess he's ready to at least have some of these guys go into the ring week one with the Jets without taking any punches.
I understand that Aaron Rodgers is a future Hall of Famer.
And that's the big one. That's the one that he told Steelers.com that you might be looking at a head coach who's not going to play his starting quarterback in the preseason.
Yeah, do you play him? Do you have to play him? I don't think you have to. The guy knows the game probably better than anyone on the team. He's won a Super Bowl. He's a 4-time MVP. I could go on and what he's able to do. Maybe one of the best throwers of the football to ever play this game. But I don't think you can replicate game action in practice. I just don't. I think you need to see something to shake that off a little bit. Look what happened a couple years when they played the Bills and they played the Bengals and Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. They didn't play in the preseason and they were rusty, and the Steelers won those games.
This is always a fun debate because you just gave a couple examples to the positive of it, but I'll look back at the Steelers from a couple years ago when Kenny Pickett was throwing darts up and down the field in the preseason for that offense, and I think everybody came away from it thinking, they've got a lot figured out, and then they come out, flat as can be against the 49ers in week one at their home stadium. So there's no be-all, end-all answer to this. I think it's always a case-by-case basis for the most part. But in this case, with a quarterback who's with a completely new team, completely new offense, wasn't even there for OTAs, didn't take live reps in mandatory minicamp, I do think it would be beneficial, and I think it would help. And if you think that, and this seems to be the tack that Mike Tomlin is taking, that Aaron Rodgers has seen so much, it doesn't matter. But Ben Roethlisberger played a tiny bit in the preseason, his final year with the Steelers back in 21. Tom Brady played a tiny bit in the preseason with the Bucs the year coming off of the Super Bowl victory, which was his last season in the NFL. So it's not unheard of for these kind of old dinosaur quarterbacks just to get out there, throw a few passes, go through the rhythm, the cadence, and the operation with your offense. I think it makes sense to me, but I guess we'll see what he decides for that third preseason game.
For me, I think it's more important for the offensive guys. I guess you can make a case for the secondary, but I don't need to see T.J. Watt play or Alex Highsmith or Cam Hayward, even though he's still holding in. But I do want to see, I did want to see DK Metcalf and Aaron Rodgers out there just for one series, just something. I don't know. I would play
too. Those guys need to gel, and they were all out there, against the Jaguars for, I think, 10, 15 snaps, except for Isaac Seumalo. He started camp on the non-football injury list, and then he missed some practice time. His partner just had a child, so he's been in and out. But, he's that fifth guy, and I think you want to see that whole unit if possible. But, I don't think you're going to see him tomorrow night either at Acrisure Stadium, and maybe you plug him in there for a drive, maybe two, in the third preseason game at Carolina. If you're fuzzy on it. Since the NFL cut that 4th preseason and they've gone to 3, Mike Tomlin has traditionally, for the most part, treated the 3rd as the quote-unquote dress rehearsal, which used to be the 3rd of the 4 for the Steelers. Now it's that last one, and that's where we saw most of the starters a season ago. I want to say it was in Detroit, right? And Cordero Patterson had a touchdown run, and things looked like they were moving pretty smoothly. But I guess he said he's not going to make any declarations just yet, but it seems like they're leaning toward keeping more of those guys out.
Yeah, that would be my guess right now. I doubt you're going to see Aaron Rodgers, and if you're not going to see Aaron Rodgers, why would you see DK Metcalf? Just keep them all on the shelf, right?
I got the vibe that Aaron Rodgers doesn't really want to play in the preseason either, because a couple weeks ago when he chatted with us at St. Vincent, of course he said it's up to Mike Tomlin. He'll do whatever he wants, but then he went on to add that he thinks the joint practice that they had yesterday now with Tampa Bay is even more beneficial for the starters than a little bit of meaningless preseason action. So you look back at his last couple years with the Jets, Rich, and if I'm not mistaken, and callers or whoever can double check this or fact check this if they want, his first year there, I'm pretty sure that Jets coach Robert Saleh said, well, you can get hurt getting out of your car to go to work in the morning. We want to see a little bit of him in the preseason. Well, we saw how that went. He ends up going down week 1. And then last year with the Jets coming off of that torn Achilles, I don't believe he got any preseason action whatsoever.
All right, our Penn West University live poll question. Just scan the QR code on the right-hand corner. What are you hoping to see in tomorrow's preseason game against the Buccaneers? Brian, go ahead.
I guess I want to see some more from the rookies. Derek Harmon first up front on the defensive side. Thought he was okay, but it's not like he was wreaking havoc against the Jaguars. And then maybe even more pressing is Caleb Johnson at running back on the offensive side.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Caleb Johnson. That's what I want to see. More of him. Because you've seen flashes. We saw him up at camp. We see him at practice. So I want to see more of that. He had the most carries with 8 carries. He had, one decent run out of those 8. I want to see a little more out of him.
One bad drop, too.
Yeah. 412-575-2600 is the number. Get on board. Back in a couple minutes. All right, welcome back to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. This is our Xfinity tweet of the night. This is from Steelers Depot. Steelers have big plans for Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith, according to Fowler from ESPN, Jeremy Fowler. I had a brain freeze right there. I couldn't remember his first name. When I visited Steelers camp and talked to people over there the last few weeks, it is obvious they are going to use Pat Freiermuth and Smith a ton. One player told him, hey, we might even be 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10. We'll roll out 12 personnel. That's how comfortable Aaron Rodgers and Arthur Smith have become with those tight ends. Well, they got 3 pretty good ones and also a pretty good receiver, but I know DK Metcalf's going to want the ball too, Brian.
Yeah, I don't know if you'll see Darnell Washington in those 3rd and longs, but certainly once you get into the red zone and at the goal line, he has been really a layup for Steelers quarterbacks to just toss one up there to him. He seems to come down with it just about every time. Yeah, I mean, I think that was obvious that was going to be an area where they really want to pepper the ball to the tight ends. You don't bring in Jonnu Smith from the Dolphins as part of that Minkah Fitzpatrick, Jalen Ramsey trade if you don't have some plans for him. Now, he's somebody else who's been banged up, so I think you would like to see him out there sooner than later. There's always, running that risk, that little bit of worry, concern in the back of your mind when a guy's about to turn 30, especially when you're at those skill positions. You don't want to fall off of a cliff, but I think Pat Freiermuth is going to have a really good season with Aaron Rodgers being more willing to attack the middle of the field. And yeah, I mean, when we talk about those 3 guys at that spot, plus DK Metcalf, who's been getting a ton of targets from Rodgers in training camp and, is paid to get that kind of attention from the offense. I think that need for a quote-unquote wide receiver 2, at least in the traditional sense, might be lessened quite a bit for this offense.
All right, 412-575-2600. Get on board. Speaking of that number 2 wide receiver, Calvin Austin's not playing. I would imagine we're going to see a little bit of Roman Wilson out there. They went to him early on the last game. I'd imagine they're going to do the same here. He has a chance to be the number 2 guy. I don't know if they're going to go on the outside. There's a lot of speculation they potentially might here. They got some money. They got some room. There's some guys that are available. I don't know if they're better than Roman Wilson, like Amari Cooper or OBJ, one of those guys. I I might go with Roman Wilson just because he's young and he's a rookie. Maybe give Amari Cooper a chance. I think OBJ is kind of over the hill. Do you think that potentially, I guess maybe it'll depend on how this game goes?
Yeah, I think it could depend on what they see from these guys in the next 2 preseason games, as well as the practice time between now and then. When does Calvin Austin get back? What does he look like when he gets back? Even more so than some of these retread options on the free agent market, whose best years are well behind them, Rich. I wonder if you would see the Steelers look at a trade option for teams that are trying to get rid of somebody who's not going to make their team, but we know Omar Khan doesn't really want to steal from that stash of picks that they've accrued from next year's draft, because I think they very much do want to have the option to move up for a quarterback if that's the case. But maybe even on cutdown day, August 26th, I think 4 p.m., the Steelers could scan the wire and see, okay, did the Patriots cut somebody who we liked in the draft a couple years ago, and maybe we can kind of bring them back to life and give them an opportunity, or the Bucs, who have a plethora of good receivers who the Steelers just got a firsthand look at in person yesterday. You know, the GM's there, the scouts are there, the coaches are there. So, yeah, I mean, it's a position group that it doesn't look like much on paper. And, you know, the guys like Scotty Miller and Max Hurleman who are making plays in camp in the preseason, you're not going to cast them in that role. Best case scenario for them is Roman Wilson does step up, and the rest of those guys can get the job done by committee as wide receivers number 3, 4, and 5.
All right, you can also tweet me at Richie Walsh if you want to get on board. And here's a tweet right here that kind of relates to what we were talking about from Ryan. What Steelers players trying to make the roster needs to have a good game tomorrow? For me, I think it's Robert Woods. He's a guy that you haven't heard much from, and I thought he was a guy that potentially might battle for that number 2 or 3 job.
Yeah, and Brandon Johnson's another name, too. He was on the practice squad all of last season. You know, he's caught some touchdowns. He's been really good on slant routes, and even in, you know, at the goal line and in the red zone for the Steelers in camp. He has 4 NFL touchdown catches in his career. A couple years ago, ironically, with the Broncos from Russell Wilson. So he has a little bit of a resume. He doesn't get mentioned as often as some of those others. But, yeah, I think all of those receivers are trying to put their best foot forward in these preseason games, whether it is a long-in-the-tooth veteran like Robert Woods, who may well be the oldest receiver in the league at this point, or someone who truly came in out of nowhere like Max Hurleman, who never played receiver, you know, even at the college level, and is finally getting a chance to kind of be that slot guy now for the Steelers.
And Pomp keeps talking up Rock Taylor. He likes that guy.
He's got some stuff to him.
All right, let's go out to the phone lines. We got Joe out in Allison Park. How you doing, Joe?
Hi, Richie. Hi, Brian. Hi. I'm being totally serious right now, and please don't laugh at me. I'm really happy with the job that Mason Rudolph and also Skylar Thompson are doing. Listen, I know we have Rodgers, but Rudolph knows the offense. And Rudolph is a good quarterback, so I want him to be I know it's not going to happen, obviously, but yeah. I want him to be the starting quarterback.
Well,
and,
Joe,
you know what else? Listen, I'm not done. I want Skylar Thompson to be the secondary backup. I've seen enough out of Rudolph he's a veteran quarterback. He knows our offense, and I saw some really good things out of Skylar Thompson. So I'm really happy, and I know I'm not going to go in that direction, but I would like for that to happen.
Yeah, Joe, I know you saw enough, but the coaches seem to think that Aaron Rodgers is a little bit better than Mason Rudolph. Now, I like Mason Rudolph, and I think if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, I think he could step in there and win them games and keep it in this thing. But there's no competition. There's no QB competition. Aaron Rodgers is the starter unless he gets hurt.
Yeah, you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound with Rodgers, clearly. This isn't Joe Flacco going back to Cleveland with the Browns. But I hear Joe's point. I mean, we don't know how this season's going to play out. We don't ultimately know if the Steelers made the right choice here to turn this season over to a 41-year-old guy who went 5-12 with the Jets last year. I mean, I think to flash back on some of the conversations we had on this show and others months ago now, Rich, there were people saying, why not just roll with Mason Rudolph? Is Rodgers really giving you that much more of a ceiling? So, yeah, I mean, I think Rudolph's looked very steady in camp, looked very steady in that preseason game, except for taking that sack. You better hope that Aaron Rodgers gives you more of an upside than Rudolph, but at least they got good quarterback play out of the rest of that depth chart.
Yeah, I think I was one of them. Let's go out to Chuck in Uniontown. How you doing, Chuck?
Yeah. Good evening, fellas, and thanks.
Thanks.
Switching to the Pirates, fellas, I do want to ask you, if Sherrington is fired, and a new GM comes in. Will he bring in a complete new staff of scouts, advisors, instructors? Because they certainly do.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole organization needs a makeover because of the lack of fundamentals, and for goodness sake, too many strikeouts, particularly with people in scoring position.
Chuck, I would sincerely hope so. Maybe he can bring a new owner with him, too. I think that's the biggest problem. But I don't see how Cherington can keep his job. I really don't. I mean, he's a nice guy and everything, but you see where this team is now and where it was 6 years ago. I think they've went backwards. You know, I understand that they have, the second best minor league according to Baseball America right now, but that's because of Connor Griffin and Bubba Chandler, two guys, mainly. I
don't necessarily know the nuances of how those takeovers go. I would assume, much like other sports, you know, a new boss comes in and you're going to want to assess every level of your organization, right? And if a guy is, presiding over a good lineup for, say your AA or AAA team, then maybe you keep him around. But yeah, I mean, I would hope if they're swapping out Cherington, one, I think you want to get somebody from an organization that's clearly having a lot of success and doing it in a way that you want to emulate, a la the Brewers, sort of like the Steelers have gone out there and gotten scouts from Philadelphia where the Eagles have been great. So yeah, that to me, Chuck, would be the answer there.
Yeah, the problem was they got Cherington from the Red Sox. They should have went after someone from, like you said, the Brewers, or like, say, Tampa Bay, another team that the Pirates fit into, another guy that knows how to work the small market system. And obviously, I don't think Ben Cherington does. He knows how to draft pitchers. One was basically handed to him, but he's done a pretty good job with that. It's just the hitting has been a major problem. The Pirates have a historically bad offense. All right, we got to take a break. Back in a couple minutes.